Hi everyone, welcome to our first class of the Medallion Quilt series. I'm excited to have you all here. We will just kind of go through the basics of the center block, and then hopefully it will explain all the information that you need to make this center block. So this is a fun block. We're doing the Lone Star, and here's an example of the star. It's really fun to make. It looks a little difficult, which is what I love. It looks hard, but I will show you the steps that make this just a breeze to put together. So here I have made one with just more monochromatic, the blues and the tans. And so that's a fun option. I also have this one that I'm going to be making all my sample blocks out of. That's a little brighter, but it just shows the different ways you can put it together and the color combinations. So let's begin with the first thing we need to do. We're going to cut strips. Well, before we cut the strips, it's very important to starch your fabric. In this quilt block, there's going to be a lot of bias cuts, and when you cut on the bias, it seems to stretch a lot more, especially when you start sewing and handling it. So starching it helps keep those fibers intact and threads so that we can sew accurately, and then it doesn't kind of stretch out. So to starch, I've used this starch. It's called Magic Premium Quilting and Crafting Spray. This I just bought off Amazon, and I was thinking it had a spray nozzle, but it didn't, so I just put it in a little spray bottle, and that works well. There's all kinds of starch. Get what kind you like or what's available, and it will work well. So what I like to do is lay my fabric, and I like to have it double and then spray quite heavily across your fabric, and then let it soak in good and press, and then I'll turn it and do the same thing to the other side. Now if you think one go around, one spray is enough, that's great. If you want to spray it again and do it twice, have a little stiffer, you can do that. But that's a very important part for this particular block, is getting that starch onto the fabric, and then before you cut. So I will add, and most of you have this, some of you may not, the quilt pattern to the email with this video. So it has the materials needed. You need 5 prints. So the 5 prints are each fabric in the star. There's 5 different prints, and in this one, kind of 5 different colors. And then background fabric. So of each of the prints, you'll look, there's a fabric A, B, C, D, and E, and each one will cut with the fabric, which is from the fold down to the selvage, okay, 1 3/4 inch of each print. So print A and E will cut 1 strip, B and D we will cut 2 strips, and fabric C we will cut 3 strips. So fabric C is the green one on this star. So that's the one, the fabric you will see the most of. So just keep that in mind. You'll see the most of that green fabric, and then on each side are the 2 strips, and then the darker blue and lighter blue are the 1 strip, which we won't see quite as much. So keep in mind that's the placement of those strips when you're trying to figure out which order and where you want to place what. All right, so we'll cut all of those strips, as well as 2 different sizes of squares, 4 of each of these. This one is 4 5/8, and this one is 6 1/8. So you'll have 4 of each of these, and then you're going to cut them on the diagonal. So when you cut them on the diagonal, like they'll look like this and like this, you'll have 8 of each of those. And we'll put those aside and use them in a minute. But first we're going to take the strips and sew them in sets of 3. All right, so there's our first set. So I chose the light blue as my A fabric, the red as my B fabric, and as my C is the green. So I'm going to do A, B, and C together. If you can see, well, I'm going to show you this end. I've staggered these about 1.5 inches because we're going to go do, you can see on this end where I've cut a diagonal cut, and we want to be able to cut on that diagonal and utilize as much fabric as we can. If you cut it really close or accurate all along, you should be able to get 2 stars out of these strips. You'll just need 1 for the quilt, but just know that there'll be a little left over that you can make an extra star if you wanted to. Okay, so our first strip set, A, B, and C, and then our next one, and this is all diagrammed in your pattern, so it's easy to look at. And then here we have B, C, and D. And then C, D, and E. You'll notice that the green is in every strip set, and it's changed positions each time. So here we're on this side, the middle, and then on the left side here. So that's how those should look. Okay, now once you have all the strip sets sewn together, you'll need to press all the seams open. Okay, we're going to be sewing a lot of seams, intersections together. If we press them open, that kind of distributes the weight of those seams so that we don't have a lot of bulk in one spot. Okay, now we're going to cut 8 little units from each of these strip sets. And what you need is some type of ruler that has a 45-degree mark. I don't know if that's hard to see. So on this square ruler, it comes diagonally right across. On a bigger ruler, it will have markings that say that's the 45-degree mark. Okay, so I'm gonna line the 45-degree line across the top of your strip set. And then I'm going to cut on this line right here. And I'm going to line it up as close as I can. Make sure that's lined up. And then cut like that. Okay, once you have that first cut, now you can, I still like to use this 45-degree line, and then you're going to cut at one, well, that one has a 1/2 inch on the end. Let's do it this way. You're going to cut okay, let me get it going the right direction here. I have to cut this out. This doesn't go the right way. That's why I use this one. Okay. Here we go. So get your 45-degree line right there. Here's our 45, 1 3/4 right here. Line that up and that up. Okay. And now I can cut a strip 1 3/4 wide. You can see it's all on the diagonal, makes little diamond shapes. We're going to cut 8 of these from each strip set. All right. Then once you have all 8 from each strip set, we're going to line them up as shown in the diagram. Let's see, where did my other little piece go? Okay, so here is our first strip set with the light blue on the bottom and the green at the top. Then we'll do the green in the middle, and then the green at the bottom, and then this dark blue at the top. Okay, and if you want to stack all 8 in a row and then you have them all in order, or set them in, whatever makes it work so that you get them in the right order. Okay, so now I'm going to mark my stitching line, 1/4 inch. Because these are going opposite directions, these seams, when we put them together, it's hard to find the exact spot where we want them to intersect and come together. So I'm just gonna mark right at the 1/4 inch line. And you can go all the way across if you want, or just mark on those seam lines. So I'm gonna do the first set and show you how I put this together. And mark on each side, because eventually we're gonna be sewing on each side and we'll need those markings. I'm using a disappearing pen. You can use whatever you want. There's heat pens, there's water-soluble pens, whatever works. Okay, so just mark on each one. And then I'll show you how to use a pin to get those together. Okay, so I'm going to flip these back the right direction, and I'm going to lay this down and try to match these intersections. I'm going to take a pin, if you can get in on that, and put it right where the seam and that marking, that 1/4 inch marking is. Okay, and then I'm going to go through and find it on the other side here. That's about right. Okay, and then have that pin go straight through, and then I can go like that, and then I'll do it on this seam as well. Find that intersection, come back on the other side. Okay, now those seams should match perfectly. So this will take a little time to mark, put your pins in exactly, but once you get sewing, it goes pretty quick. And then sew 1/4 inch, and then you're gonna open. So now you'll have this little section, and then you'll add this one the exact same way. And if you'll notice, I've pressed the seams open here as well. So this just gives you really, these seams are going opposite directions, really a nice flat seam set. Okay, so we'll sew that one on, and now it will look like this. You will have 8 pieces that look like this. When I started, let's see, I was thinking maybe the dark would be the center, and then I decided light. So you can go either direction with this. So if you decide to change, or you can make these go either direction. Just make sure they're all going the same direction with this next step. And so we'll have 8 of these to form the 8 points of the star. All right, the first thing we will do, I like to lay it out and kind of see, make sure these pieces are like the diagram. So this smaller triangle piece is going to go on top, and then this bigger piece right here, and then we're going to kind of have a right angle right here, and then we're going to this, and then we're going to sew. I'm going to switch this one out. This one goes here. let's see, right there. And this one goes right there. Okay, can you see how that's gonna make a little block right there? So I just like to lay it out and make sure it looks okay. So you're gonna sew, I like to sew these two small ones on first. You can see 1/4 inch seam there. And then I have pressed it towards the background fabric. And then all these seams just lay flat against that one. So those two together, and then you're going to sew this one on to here. I like to just line up those corners. You know you've done it right when those line up really nicely, and sew along this line. Okay, so do that 8 times, and then you will have 8 of these pieces, which you're going to line up to make a square. So you can see once we sew down this center diagonal line, it will make a square. So this time the seams are kind of going the same direction, so it's a little easier to match pinning. But I would still draw that 1/4 inch line, make sure we're matched up, and then you can go straight through and find the exact spot on the other side in the middle of the seam. Okay, and pin. So super important to pin and get those points perfectly. So I can pin here and at the end, and then my 1/4 inch seam all the way down. Okay, so we do that 4 times, and then we'll end up with these 4 units. And this is when it gets exciting. You can see it coming together, right? Got the 4. Okay, so now we'll sew this together and here. Again, pinning and matching each of those intersecting seams. So I will sew here, put it together, sew here, and then once those 2 are together and these 2 are together, we'll match the whole center seam all the way across. So we're matching that center and all these little points. Okay, and then you end up with this final star, and it will measure 18.5 inches square. So this is unfinished 18.5 inches square. And then next month, we will be adding a border on to this square. And each month after, we'll be adding another border around, and then it will just continue to grow as we add these borders. They'll be pieced borders. You'll learn different techniques in each border and how to make a match, and all go together really perfectly. So any questions, let me know, but I hope you have fun making this block, and we will see you next month.